Hey everybody, it's Mr. Danner, and I'm going to go over our assignment from earlier in the week. I posted it on Monday, I believe, and didn't get to get the video recorded. So here it is, and I'm actually going to extend the due date a couple days as well, till like middle of next week, again because the video was a little bit late getting out. So a couple things I want to point out first, just as a reminder. This video that I posted on yesterday, on the 28th, it has all the stuff about like potential reopening of the school. We do not have dates or times or anything other than just a general plan of like what's going to happen if and when school reopens this school year. And like I said, there's no timeline whatsoever. But I posted a video from Mr. Folk, a video from the district explaining just like kind of what's going on and what it'll look like if and when we go back. If you did not fill out your intent, like because there's a form that everybody needs to fill out that talks about when we go back, do you want to stay virtual or do you want to go back to in person, so that we know like how many students we'll have in the building and how many students will be staying virtual, because that's going to affect like our staffing and who teaches what. And then this kind of explains like the virtual learning option if you stay there. So make sure that you watch the stuff and fill out that form. If you have not, we have about, I think 2/3 of the school has, maybe even a little bit more than that, but we need to hear from everybody so we know that if and when we go back to in person, like who's coming back in person, who would be staying. Anyway, that being said, assignment for this week, we are on Unit 3. The unit question is, what does good authority look like? And we spent some time earlier, like last week, talking about authority and why people listen to orders. And that's when we watched the video about the Milgram experiment and people, thinking they were giving electric shocks to others, and they were doing just because somebody with quote unquote authority was telling them to. So now the rest of the unit's gonna focus on like the police and the authority they have and like what the police have looked like in our country throughout history. So I have it posted right here, 3.2, Origins of the Police. I'm starting to number every assignment so it will correlate in Infinite Campus. Like you'll see 3.2 as a grade in the grade book and you'll know it's this assignment. I need to change these, sorry. So anyway, if you can, there's a Google slide. Click on that and open it. You cannot edit the Google slide.
Just heard your voice.
And then pause. All right, so there's probably a weird shift in the recording because I just hit pause and restarted. So again, classwork, it's 3.2, Origins of the Police. And so I have two things, a Google slide, which you cannot edit. In the past, we had the questions in the Google slide. We're actually going to ask you guys what you think about that, if you prefer the questions in the Google slide or like it's right here in the Google Doc. I have a feeling the Google slide's going to win out. So what you're going to be turning in is this Google Doc. And what we have, this is going to go through a history of the police in our country. So the origins even of the word police, what the police looked like going back as far as like the 1600s and all the way up until like the 1800s, and like what the role of the police have been in our country. So keep that in mind, because all I'm going to do is just walk through each source just briefly and explain kind of like what we're looking for. But for every slide, like here's slide 1, there's slide 1 question on the Google Doc. Then for slide 2, there's going to be slide 2 question. Most of these questions are going to be, what do you think? So keep that in mind. And so what we have is slide 1 is the police and the origins of the police. So this word comes from the Greek word police, which translates to city. So its verb to police means to maintain law and order. In Greece, in the polis, which is in the city, men argued and debated as equals under a rule of law. Outside the city, in households, men dominated women, children, servants, and slaves under a rule of force. Kings asserted a rule of force over their subjects on the idea that their kingdom was their household. So basically, it talks about like the origin of the word police is just all about like who people in charge, whether it's in a city, in a kingdom, in a household. So the word police is all, the origin of the word is basically from authority. So even like right here, where does the word policing coming from? You can put this, comes from the Greek word police, which means city. You can put that. The verb, you can go back right here, to police, means to maintain law and order. And these are just coming straight from the slides, obviously. This is the only question where it's going to be like that. So in ancient Greece, who was the authority? And it talks about the heads of households. So in ancient Greece, the authority was so the authority was in households, men were kings, were in their kingdoms, men were all equal in the cities. So that's just talking about who had the authority. You can put all of that as your answer. Feel free. I'll leave that there. It might even show up on your Google Doc. I'm not sure. Sometimes it does. So that's the only one where it's going to just take answers straight from the slides. So I'm going to give examples for slide 2. Then I'm just going to like walk through what the rest of the slides are. So slide 2 is talking about the origins of what police departments were. And so originally police departments, they were different from what we know today. They were called watch patrols. If you've ever heard of like a neighborhood watch, that's what a police department was. It was like a neighborhood watch. It was voluntary. So like people didn't, sign up to be a police officer and make that their job or their career. It was all volunteer. People did it on their own time. So, and you're going to see where there were some problems. The watch system was composed of community volunteers whose primary duty was to warn of impending danger. So their job wasn't to stop danger, it was to warn people. Say, hey, I see something happening. Everybody go run and hide or come out and help me or something. So their job was just to watch out for danger and let people know. The night watch was not a particularly effective crime control device because watchmen often slept because it was at night. They often slept. They got drunk while on duty. While it was voluntary, many of the volunteers were simply attempting to evade military service. So if you were on the watch, you didn't have to join the military, or they were forced into service by their town, or, this is the best part, they were performing watch duties as a form of punishment. So think about that. These watches, these were like the original police. They were performing watch duties as a form of punishment. So, for example, you commit a crime, your punishment would be to join the watch, which is to join the police. Think about that. You commit a crime, your punishment is to join the police. That could be a problem. And again, it wasn't the police as we know it today. Philadelphia created the first day watch in 1833, so we didn't have like daytime people looking out until the 1800s. And New York did it in 1844. So think about this, and I'm going to give you an example here. Can you think of some potential problems with the volunteer patrols? Okay, easy. First, people didn't take it seriously. They drank or slept on the job because it was voluntary. Some were forced to join. That's a problem. If you're forced to do something, you tend to be less likely to do it well. And then finally, people were punished for crimes by having to join the watch. The criminals were basically the police force. So I'm not going to go through and give answers for the rest, but you can put that for slide 2. So that's basically what we're looking through. So slide 2 is the origins, what the watches were. Slide 3 is just talking about what neighborhood watches are today. If you guys don't know, like, you know, there are such things as neighborhood watches where the exact same thing, people volunteer to be on the lookout and tell people about danger. And the way that's done is through social media. You know, if you live in a neighborhood, like, or even in like an apartment complex, there might be like a Facebook page or an Instagram thread for your neighborhood, your apartment, whatever. There's an app called Nextdoor where people literally just post stuff and says, "This is what I see. This is what I see." And lots of people just like complain about other people, but you know, you'll see like people like say, "Oh, here's a picture of a license plate of a car that was speeding through the neighborhood." Stuff like that happens. So that's 3, just talking about neighborhood watches. And again, what do you think can happen when people give themselves the authority? Because that's what neighborhood watches are, is people like giving themselves the authority to kind of call others out. Next, 4, original police departments. It's just talking about like when the original actual police departments took place. So, and it's talking about police departments were for the collective good, meaning the good of everybody. And that's what the question focuses on there. The collective good. What do you think the collective good means in this situation? I just told you it means for the good of everybody, but in this particular situation, what does the collective good mean? Here, in the South, after the Civil War, before the Civil War, when there were still enslaved people, the original police, their job was slave patrols. Their job was to hunt down and make sure that there weren't, enslaved people walking the streets or running away. So that was the original police in the South. Slave patrols were another form of volunteer vigilantism. That's basically people taking it upon themselves to stop crime. So what do you think happened when these people took power upon themselves? That's just a what do you think question. When basically white people decided that it was their job to chase down people they thought were escaped slaves. And then 6, and 7. 6, what are just noticings from the image? This is a slave patrol in the image. You can tell that's the enslaved person. These are the volunteers. What are 3 things that you notice from that picture? That's what 6 is asking. And then 7 is the oath. Acting through the trust reposed in me as the law directs. This means the trust given to me. Repose, it's just given to me. All right, so what do you think that means? And then 8 is just kind of voluntary. You might want to just listen to this audio. So that's what all those sources are. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So obviously always reach out if you have questions and let me know. But yeah, there is the assignment about policing, the origins of the police in our country. So yeah, always let me know if you have questions.
And